Okay, hi brothers and sisters, we're back for another video. After my little break here away. We're going to discuss the idol, actually, the beast system, and what we've come, to conclusions on this and understanding from what we're told in the Old Testament. It does require study. And it's a gradual understanding. We're not saying everything that we say is right, but it's eventually going to lead us to a conclusion that hopefully is the truth and reasons out. And I think so far we've reasoned out quite a bit of it. And we're going to look at a passage now in Revelations 13, and I think it's verse 12. And this is what it says. And this is going to take us on kind of a wild goose chase in a sense through through the Old Testament, really. Once you get, as far as we've gotten in our understanding, it begins to just start, the climb gets to be easier, believe it or not, in your understanding when we begin to weave the truth together. So, Revelation 13:12 says, let me go up here. Does it say? Okay. So, no, we're going to start in verse 11. It says, Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. This beast had 2 horns like a lamb. Okay, let's key in on that. Let's go right in on it. Zoom in on that. Lamb. 2 horns like a lamb. But spoke like a dragon. Okay, that's important. And this beast exercised all the authority of the first beast and caused the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose mortal wound had been healed. All right. And the second beast performed great signs to cause even fire from heaven to come down to the earth in the presence of the people. Well, now, to get a greater understanding of this, let's go down and read the commentary directly under the verse here. All right. Okay. So we get this beast, right? Oh, did I write that down? I don't know if I hit on that passage. I'm sorry. So if we read this, all right, there's some very interesting stuff that we're going to take away. It says, and he exercises, better, and he works, or exercises, or literally does all the authority or power of the first wild beast in his presence. So we get the wild beast here. It's leading us to something. Who was cast out to wander like a wild beast for 7 years by God? Well, that was Nebuchadnezzar. And as we've discovered on this channel, one of the names, God names that they used for him would have been Nebu. Now, I also linked that to Nimrod, back to Nimrod, because there is some correlation there. But you can clearly see Nebuchadnezzar, Nebu, all right? So this is important to take into consideration because Isaiah 46 tells us that Baal boweth down, Nebu stoopeth, and eventually they have gone into captivity and could not deliver the burden. So we discovered Baal is another word for your husband standing as your Lord and your God, which leads us to the idol of Jesus. You are never to have no God, no idol before you, it says. No other God but the true living God. And no idol before you, neither male nor female. Well, we got a triple male idol. And you can say it's not an idol. The image of Jesus is everywhere in the form of an idol. So you are so worshiping an idol, whether you want to admit to it or not. And you can say, oh, it's in faith. It's in blind faith. We're gave the choice to have free will to go in and discover the truth in the Old Testament. And if you can't be bothered, well, then you're going to be blamed for not being bothered. To study to show thyself approved unto God, not unto man, who's teaching you a lie off the pulpit. But here, this beast, this wild beast, it will be seen by this, that we must not look upon the second wild beast as a successor. All right? Now, I often will say with the idol in Daniel, I got Daniel pulled up, is Daniel 2, that each were shown in Daniel 2 when Nebuchadnezzar has his dream, that each successive kingdom actually does so build upon this idol of a man that began with Nebuchadnezzar making this golden idol, that everyone would actually bow down to this idol. And the idea was that he was showing himself as if he was Lord and God who had made the kingdom. He puts his arms out at one time, he extends them, and he says, look at all that I have made. So he was expecting to be bowed down and worshipped to. And the king that follows after him does the exact same thing. So we see this succession building, continuing. And in Daniel 6:7, it is speaking about Darius, but he says, you won't speak to no other God or listen to any other God's decree but mine. You're not going to go to anybody. You're going to listen to me, because I'm the God of the kingdom, is what you're going to take away. Man had become God of his own kingdom, you see, because he wasn't hearkening to the true living God. But listen to what it says here. It says, it will be seen by this that we must not look upon the second wild beast as a successor, but rather as a supporter of the first beast. That's right. Absolutely. We link that all back to Sennacherib, that pointy cherub. That's right. Who was creating a new system. And we see Solomon doing the same thing. And we're able to link that number 666 in Revelation back to King Solomon, who was laying in place, along with these other men here, these other kings, a harlot spirit foundation that would bow to the idol of a man as Lord and God. All right. So they were rather a supporter of the first. So the intellectual force, this is important to understand this. So the intellectual force of an earthly wisdom has become now, is practically subservient to the spirit of the unmitigated worldliness. Worldliness, it says. And it is. Earth's wisdom comes from what it's been taught at the feet of an idol. It has no wisdom to reason the truth out as God would have us to do. And we're told the only way that you're going to be able to do that is to pick yourself up from the feet of the idol. It says, return, return, O Shulamite. What might we see when the Shulamite return? As it were, the company of two armies. That two armies is identified as the camp of Mahanaim, the camp of God. And it is these women, the 144,000, with no guile on their tongue. They're not bowing to a religious idol built up by man, saying he's our head, he's the Lord and God, and all this, blah, 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 blah. We've gone over it. But, so we see this idol being made, right? And it says, and causes the earth. Literally, he makes the earth and them that dwell in it, that they shall worship the first wild, see, we get wild beast. It's indicating that it's going to take us back to Nebuchadnezzar and the dream that he dreamed in Daniel 2. And the stroke of whose death was healed. And he does signs great, so that he even makes fire to descend out of the heaven to the earth in the sight of men. This descent of fire is the counterpart of the work of the witnesses. Well, it says of the two witnesses. It's the witness of the Holy Spirit in the land. They are the counterpart against that lie. That, you see, the fire that Jesus brings is supposedly the law of heaven. I was always taught in Sunday school that he walked the law every jot and tittle and fulfilled the Torah law perfectly. Really, he did he? He did. No, he was Joshua. As Joshua, he fulfilled her 10 commandments. That's what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to live them and show them. But they end up making Jesus into an idol, standing, that all woman would bow to him as if he was her head. Man's her head, Muscle and what's between his legs is the image of God, the power of God. It's not the Spirit. They lied to us. It is not the Spirit. No. No, it's the muscle in his arm dictating to you women because he wants you to play his harlot. So what do you suppose is ruling his mind and in telling you that he's your head? You can't figure that out. Look around you. And there's a word in the New Testament that tells you that in order to understand the spiritual world, you're going to have to open your physical eyes to bridge the gap between the two. And most are reluctant to open their eyes. They're too busy going blind faith, bowing at the feet of an idol, saying blood washes you. That's a lie. That's the stain of Cain. That's the mark of Cain, the stain of blood. God's not going to look at you going, oh, gee, you're stained in blood. Should I really think you're my child? No, you're supposed to be washed in my water. You're not supposed to come before me stained in the mark of Cain. And that's what that's been identified as. Chances is, in my opinion, you're going to laugh. I don't really care anymore. Laugh away. I know I'm right. I'm so high up now in study, okay? Not in I'm better than you. But I've chose to try to find the truth. The truth matters to me. But Abel is feminine. It's a feminine name. She did not offer up blood. She offered up the good of the land. That's right. The wheat. She didn't offer up blood. Cain did. And that became his mark, staining him in the land. That was the mark placed upon him. He was marked by blood. And Abel means a meadow, a field, more or less her land, her pasture, where she was to be at peace in, is your understanding the more you study. She says, I will take them back to their pastures that they were kicked out of. We'll look at that, hopefully. But Abel was a daughter. She was so a daughter. And she was, by design, supposed to be the firstborn of the kingdom. And Ephraim is the firstborn of mother's womb, not father's womb. It's mother's womb. And just because the men of Baal and the beast system got a hold of the word and with great violence caused the truth to be uprooted out of the land, or uprooted, not uprighted, uprooted out of the land. What it means is it's going to require a great deal of not earthly wisdom, but really going back to the Spirit and saying, there's something wrong here with the teachings of men on the pulpit, that this really does so tickle their ears. To think that they're your head, I've heard it my whole life. I grew up under headship doctrine. Man's your head. No, he's not. See? Look, I got my own head. I got my own brain. I'm no more a sinner than you are. If anything, by these teachings, you have took what was righteous in the land and you have turned it all upside down into lasciviousness. And those are your words in the New Testament when you get studying it. By claiming that he's your head and you must submit to him and everything out of his wicked heart, he's made you his harlot. And there's verses there. Let's go to Timothy. For those who don't want to hear the truth, they're not going to hear it anyway. So we'll find Timothy here for a quick reference. This is there, the kind who worm their way into households and captivate vulnerable women who are weighed down with sins. There we go with that word sin. S-Y-N. It's going to take us to Sennacherib, which means in Hebrew, when you look the Strong's Hebrew up, Sennacherib's name meant he has multiplied the brothers. But when you look it up in Wikipedia, it'll say sin. And that was a name for a moon god. And the interesting thing, when you look the name, Sheshbazzar up in Abram publication, his name means sin protects the father. Now remember, sin was the moon god. So it's saying the moon protects the father, and also his name meant worshipper of fire. The fire that comes down from heaven. But here it says, they are the kind who worm their way into households and captivate vulnerable women who are weighed down with sins, and led astray by various passions. Yeah. 2 Timothy 3:7. Who are always learning, but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. So what passions are they led away by? Oh, I got to bow at the feet of Christ. He loved me so much. That's the passions. They're weighed down with sin, but they're always learning, just never able to come to the knowledge of the truth of what that sin was. And that sin is that you denied your Creator in the days of your youth. You turned away from your mother, in whose image you were supposed to be representing here on earth, and you turned to your husband Baal, which is also the bull god Apis, straight out of Egypt, as that golden calf, which then we're told over time that golden bull becomes an image of a man standing, Baal, the god Baal, which is another name for your husband, Lord of God, which is also an idolatrous idol that you were never to be found worshiping. So you are living in the land of Babylon. You are Babylon's children. You can't seem to pull yourself up from the feet of the idol. That's your passions of a harlot spirit. That's why he's able to accuse you daily in the heavens, right? But I'm getting away from this. So they're always learning. They're just never able to come to the knowledge of the full truth. Especially when you're listening to the Baal men, the sons of Belial, on the pulpit, which is direct branches, direct roots out of the false foundation that got planted. So now that's going to lead us into another thought here. And this is going to lead us to, where is it? I have to go through here because I can't remember right off what passage I'm looking for. Yeah, it's Isaiah 14:29. I'll make a note here so I don't forget. Viper out of the roots. And we'll discuss this, I guess, more open. We won't necessarily go in and find all the reference because we know them on this channel if you've watched my videos. But what's the viper out of the root here? Isaiah 14:29. It says, do not rejoice, all you Philistines, that the rod that struck you is broken. From the root of that snake will spring up a viper. Its fruit will be a darting and venomous serpent. So what is that talking about, do you think? Well, once we've gone in and we study who the daughters of Zion was, that they were the spirit of the original covenant, the original covenant, I'll say first covenant, the original covenant, she was the foundation stone, rejected before the foundation of the world. See, they laid in play a harlot spirit that would bow to him. But she becomes the rejected spirit, right, in the land. And so what does it mean here? I lost my thought there. Sorry about that. That the snake that will spring up as a viper, its fruit will be a darting venomous serpent. So what I'm going to tell you is that this branch is the branch that's going to branch off from the false foundation that was laid, okay? Because they denied her and they turned her into his harlot is what they did. We find that in Micah chapter 4. It says, let our eyes look upon Zion, let her be defiled. And God says, but you know not my thoughts. You don't know what I'm thinking. You don't know what I'm doing. And then it says, arise and thresh, O daughter of Zion, daughter of Israel, and thresh to the nations. And they're hers to thresh. They're hers to do with what she pleases. Because in Proverbs 1, wisdom says, hearken to me, hearken to my instructions. And when they refuse and reject her instructions and her laws, she says, fine, I'll mock you in the day of your calamity, and I'll bring out my rod of iron. Okay, so that's going to bring us to that wrought iron and where it's going to come from in a minute. But we know this is positive because of the next verse here that flows in Isaiah 14:29. And I'm losing so many of my thoughts here because I have so much going on in my head. We'll get to it at some point if I forget it. But she says, then the firstborn of the poor will find pasture, and the needy will lie down in safety. but I will kill your root by famine, and your remnant will be slain. So she's talking about Babylon. That's what she's talking about. And Babylon came from Nebu, and prior to Nebu, we've seen men like Sennacherib and Nimrod trying to build up this kingdom, and they were all in flux over it, but over time they do manage to weave together this web of lies that is holding. And what you see is this portion of space, because this was a heavenly battle, and the only way we can really understand it is to take it into outer space. There was a heavenly battle going on, and it was over her territory. The men were trying to assert their authority over her rightful territory, which actually was allegorical to her body, is what it was. And how we know that is because of the passage we find in Isaiah 59. And, okay, where's Isaiah 59? I thought I had it up here. Now it's just stopped working. Here we go. Okay, now it's working. Okay, so Isaiah 59 wasn't there. It was back here. There it is. So Isaiah 59, what does it say? What does it say in Isaiah 59? And this is about the body. So we're looking at a web of lies here. All right? The web of lies that gets told over time by men like Nebuchadnezzar, men like Sennacherib started it, King Solomon really got it rolling big time. All right? That's what we understood. The number 666 links straight back to King Solomon, who was the one who actually manages to exalt himself to the throne of God. And he says, I am, right? In Isaiah 14. And yet God says, oh, but you are nothing more than just a man. And so we know that that carries to the name Satan, who said he would exalt himself to the throne of God. And yet God says, you are nothing more than a man, Satan. All right? So we understand that it's actually mankind trying to exalt themselves to the throne of God and deny her rightful place over her own territory, over her own body, right? And God says in Isaiah 49, and she says, you'll bind them all on thee as a bride doeth. Well, that's it up for content. That's another one I have to tell you. I don't believe that word means at all what they're trying to tell us. It means matrimony. But in Isaiah 49, she says, you'll bind them all on thee as a bride doeth, and you'll wear them like a necklace. And so I picture planets, kind of, in a sense there. Her portion of heaven is being remade, which represents her body, that these wicked sons come in, attack, and took authority. And from planet to planet, I see gateways weaved together as the webs. So this is what it says about the body that cannot hold together. So we know this is a heavenly body taking place not only on planet Earth, it's playing out, but it's also playing out in the heavenlies. And we know that she was the authority, the ruler over her own body. It was not him that ruled her. But he come in and he began to tell lies behind her back. And he began to take them to the head of heaven out there. And we see that, she says, they accuse me of things, and I don't know what they're talking about. Isaiah 35. We see them gnashing upon her, tearing her apart, ripping her to pieces in a sense. It says, the bulls of Bashan have surrounded me, those wicked men, those sons of Belial, allegorical to your bull that must die to wash his wicked bride in blood, no less. Yeah. And but we see them in Psalm 22, the bulls of Bashan have surrounded me, and they're more or less gnashing upon her, and they're ripping her body apart, is the idea that you get with gnashing. And we get the word piercing there, and they want to say, well, how do you put the word piercing with a woman when it was clearly Christ who died? Well, the word piercing appears in Jeremiah 9. He says, I weep. Jeremiah says, I weep for the slain of the daughter of my people. He didn't say for the sons. He said, I weep for the slaying of the daughter of my people. And when you look the word slain up in Jeremiah 9, it means pierced. They pierced upon her until they had ripped her completely apart. And here we get in those Isaiah 59, these wicked kings of old who have come all the way to an idle standing of Jesus as a man, as your Lord and God, this web of lies that they've weaved together. But what does God say to them? They hatch cockatrice eggs, and they weave the spider's web. He that eateth of their eggs dieth, and that which is crushed breaketh out into a viper. Their webs shall not become garments. It's telling you, their web of lies, because that's what this is allegorical to, will not hold together in an eternal body because they lied. They took away your portion, and they said, oh, well, you don't have no portion. Your tabernacle is mine. No, it's not. There's 2 tabernacles below. There's not just one. But by saying there was just one head, one body, they force you under his lying covenant that man is your God and that you play his harlot under a religious lie and law system. And it says their webs shall not hold together, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. For their works are the works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. We know they perpetuated violence against these daughters. We know they removed their rightful inheritance, and it was their inheritance. It was not theirs to take. It was not theirs to have authority over. It was her, and it was her inheritance. And we get the inheritor in the New Testament as female, not male, because it was her inheritance, and she was heir to the kingdom that they stole from her, gnashed upon her, pierced upon to take her out of the land. And we get all of that in allegory. You will find it in Psalm 22. You will find it in Micah chapter 2. You will find it in Jeremiah 9. You will find it in Jeremiah 6, 7, 8. Read the chapters and understand what it's telling you that they did to these righteous daughters of Israel. They took them out of existence so they could put an image of a man standing as your Lord and God and play God and make woman his harlot, bowing at his feet. That don't reason to you, huh? Because God is not a God of fairness, truth, and equity. God is a big fat liar and made woman to be a man's doormat. Is that correct? Because he's so much less a sinner than you are. Why would God want you listening to a wicked man who wants you playing his harlot in his bed? And they're all alike. Listen to him. Just listen to him talk behind your back. And you can hear him talk behind your back because you know what? That old gossip is a-flowing pretty darn good in today's world. Better than it ever did. Oh, one phone to the next. Oh, it's good gossip, baby. It travels fast. You know exactly what they're saying. And they're dirty-minded. And they truly believe that this arm, this power in their arm, makes them God. It does not. It is the Spirit that ruleth all things. Now that's what it states. And it says, their webs shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their paths. The way of peace they know not, and there is no judgment in their goings. They have made them crooked paths. Whosoever goeth therein shall not know peace. So now we come upon the path, okay? This pathway that has to be straightened out. It has to be made smooth, is your understanding. And to make something smooth, it means to actually straighten it out, is what it means. We're told that the daughter Zion, daughter Israel actually, is made responsible for this. And you find that responsibility that she's gave in Isaiah 40. Isaiah 40, we'll get there. Okay, so Isaiah 40. What does it say? Isaiah 40. It says, I think it's Isaiah 40. I better double. Okay, it says, comfort ye, my people, saith your God. Speak ye comfortably to her Jerusalem it's got. But we've got some questions on Jerusalem too lately. And cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, and that her iniquity is pardoned, for she has received of the Lord's hand double for her sin. A man didn't die. And the voice of her, not him, because she is the witness in the earth. We've identified her as the witness in the earth. The voice of her that crieth in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. So to be in the desert means to be in a dry land, all right? And that dry land is allegorical to a lying doctrine that comes upon you. Her land is made very, very dry, isn't it? Sure it is. We have a dry land. And Zion will link you to the words of dry desert land, okay? So she has to make straight the highway. It's her, it's not him. They got him there. That's fine. These wicked kings want to stick he everywhere because they're so in love with their own male image, because they know it empowers them on this world to dictate to those women who are always learning but never able to come to the real knowledge of the truth. And that means to question in your heart who the God is that you believe is God, and what that would look like, truly. Would it look like God would say, well, I want you bowing to him because, well, he's your head. Let's face it, you can't think like he can think. Well, wisdom is a she, which also she says, fine, you didn't want to hearken to me in my ways. I'll send my rod of iron, which links us to Psalm 2, where she says to her daughter, it's not a son, this day have I birthed you, and it is birthing a child. It is not a father. And she says, today I give the decree to my daughter, this day have I begotten thee. Now that's going to take us to the north. That's where it's going to take us to in a minute. And so, and again, I lost my thought where I was going. Right? So, okay, so she has to make straight the path. Now let's go to a word that's going to help us zero in on this a little bit. And that's in Ezekiel 27:19. Okay? So let's read the verse here right quick. We'll start in 18. It's a lament for Tyre. Now where was Tyre? It was in the land of Lebanon, right? And we identified the house in the forest of Lebanon. And this was allegorical to her house being torn down. That's right, her portion being torn down. He steals. He's the great thief, right? We hear the thief in the Old Testament. And he was a thief. He stole all that belonged to her, claiming everything belonged to him. And, okay, yeah, and I also want it to go here, so I'm going to make a little mark here. So, and this is where we get the understanding of the wrought iron, okay, which is going to take us to what's going to smash the toes on the false image in Daniel 2, that every successive kingdom built upon, which is then actually, we're told, they're just giving the same glory to the same ideas that the first beast did, the first wild beast did. This one is just carrying it through, right? That man is your God. And that's really what it means when you get right down to it. But in verse 18 of Ezekiel 27, because of your many products and your great wealth of good, Damascus traded with you wine from Helbon, wool from Zahar. So we get the wine here. We know what the wine is allegorical to. Admixture of doctrine, a lie, which is also the Red Sea, that the right hand, also she as the right hand, is also a person with her own right hand, her own power. She is the power of the body, we're told that, and she was able to part the Red Sea, as in the allegory of a woman birthing a child through. And so she parts the admixture, one of blood, one of water, and she pushes her children through. The camp of Mahanaim, known as the camp of God on earth, who Jacob wrestled with, who she hamstrings, which is a very negative thing. You don't do that to a friend. You don't hamstring them. Anytime we get the word hamstring in the Old Testament, it's usually with David, who was instructed by God to go hamstring all the horses of the invading armies or the attacking armies. So it's a very negative thing. So basically you're getting the allegory that Jacob was actually attacking her. And he took her birthright, that's the camp of God, camp of Mahanaim, also Mahanaim, also known as the presence of God. Also the double camp seen with the Shulamite. He says, look not upon me, because I am black. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard. But my own vineyard have I not kept. It was her vineyard. All right? It was her inheritance. It was her own body. She has her own head. She doesn't use his to rule. We submit out of love to one another. It's not a submission of, oh, you better bow because he, God, told you to bow to me. No, that's the lie of the idol in the land, okay? And she's always learning, just never able to come to the knowledge of that truth. And the only way you really come to that truth is a spiritual understanding of who God truly is. God does not demand that woman bow to man. Never did. And God says, I will remove the name of Baal off of your tongue. He is not your Lord and your master. That's part of the lie that came out of Egypt. We saw it, we discovered it, which is also part of why the witnesses die in the land of Sodom and Egypt, because we partly are living in the land of Egypt, Babylon. We are known as the children of Babylon. We're bowed at the feet of the idol that those men like Sennacherib, like Nimrod, like Solomon, we're all building up in the land. Every successive kingdom. Darius, we get Darius making the decree that you would not ask any other god for anything. You would come to him. You would clear it with him, which was just an extension, a continuation of what Nebuchadnezzar was all about. And what does it say? It says they have all gone into captivity. It says that, Isaiah 46. This is what it means to study. It means to use wisdom, to use her guidance in your thoughts. And that means relying on the Spirit and how the Spirit would want you to interpret things. Not how man on the pulpit wants you to interpret it. That his muscle is God, his form is God, and you, woman, was made for him, and you better bow down to him. That's not the Spirit of God. That is the spirit of wickedness in their wicked hearts, and also their pride, so proud in their heart that they could not receive the laws of heaven at their wife, the original spirit of the original covenant, mouth. They worked to gnash upon her, to tear her down, so they could build their idol of man up, so every woman would bow, and he could steal your goods. He could claim you had no rights. He could make you his harlot in his bed. But it don't reason out, huh? In here, in your heart, where you claim you are a child of God, it doesn't reason out that that's how God works. No. No, 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 no. I mean, come on. God says reason. Make sense. You're not making no sense. Father created and made everything. You didn't deny your creator, your mother, in the days of your youth. Deuteronomy 32:82. You forgot the rock, the God, that writhed in pain to birth you. That is not a father. You forgot about your mother and the image that you were to be reflecting here on earth. And that was not to play man's harlot. And Ezekiel 21, she says, I am not ruling through a harlot spirit. And when you get your understanding of what's being spoken of, that's exactly what she's saying in Ezekiel 21. So what does it say in Isaiah 46? Make sure it's Isaiah. Baal, boweth down. Nebu, stoopeth. Their idols were upon the beasts, yeah. And upon the cattle, your carriages were heavy laden. They are burden. They are a burden. They are a burden to women. Men telling you that this God, Jesus, male, he, don't matter which religion you want to go to today of the main three, they're all male. They are a burden on women because it has gave them the right to write yoke, law upon law upon law on your neck, with them claiming it came from God. Reason that in your spirit of the God that you've been told of, a God of love. Does that reason out? No. And that is the only way you're going to reach the truth. God says, you approach me with the vain traditions of men, but you don't even know who I am. You'll walk under a ridiculous yoke, and you'll carry this burden on your neck before you ever determine to pick your eyes up, Turn away from that ridiculous idol and start to turn back to your true creator. But Baal is your idol, and he washed you in his blood. Did he? Did he? Well, he didn't wash you clean. He stained you in it, is what he did. You are washed in her water, which is identified in Song of Songs 4:12-15. It's also identified in Proverbs 5. And it says, they stoop, they bow down together, they could not deliver the burden, but themselves are gone into captivity. And what captivity did these great kings who were playing God, why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as if he can give life, and every face is turned pale? They're all turning pale because they are witnessing the destruction of the world that they thought that they were going to make live forever. And what does it say of these great kings? They have all gone down into Sheol, into captivity. They have died, right? They're trapped there, into the pit, the snare they laid for you to fall into. It says they have fell into it themselves, and they do not escape it, right? Death, the pit of death. And because they thought it's on them to deliver you wicked. Just listen to what comes out of their mouth. What comes out of their mouth comes out of their heart, right? They don't want equality, which is from God. They want to rule over you. They want to tell you that the covenant of God looks like this, when we've proved this was not the covenant of God, which then leads me to this word. Let me see if I can find it. I got a bunch of words here pulled up somewhere. We should be able to locate it. Maybe. I say maybe. Okay, it's in connection to the air, I believe. Yes, it is. So I need to find this word. Where is it? Is it all the way back here? Right there, I believe. Yeah, there it is. So it is Strong's Greek 2817. It means inheritance. It's feminine. It is a feminine noun. An inheritance, a heritage. Regularly the gift of God to not his chosen people, her chosen people. It's her vineyard. It's not his. In the Old Testament, the promised land. That's right, her. That's right, her promised land. Representing her body that got torn down and pierced by the men of old. An heir, apportioned inheritance by the casting of lots. Now we were told they were denied the right to cast lots. That means to take more land. All right. Once these kings of old, Sennacherib, and we've studied it all on this channel, and Solomon, all began to play God, like the deliverer of the kingdom, the one that gave life, claiming it was Father, and they changed that image all over, such as this name here that we looked at, sin protects the Father. Sin, the powers of darkness, which is the moon god. The powers of darkness protects Father. Oh, don't they? Don't they protect Father and toss her to the wolves, which we see in Psalm 22, them tearing her to pieces and piercing upon her covenant and took it out of the land so they could lay in a false foundation. So here we have her land being destroyed. In effect, she's being weakened under his law system. She's forced into his tabernacle, in a sense, his house, because she has no rights. She owns nothing. She has no pastures where she can lay down in peace and quiet that belongs to her and her children. No, we're told we must come under his law system in his house and basically play his harlot is what you're doing. Here we get the feminine heirship. And this is what it says, which led me to the meaning of the truth here, of the word matrimony. And it says heirship, concretely patrimony, or genitive case, a possession and inheritance. Well, when you look patrimony up, it means to come into an inheritance through your father, right? Something that belonged to your father. So we got the word patrimony. Well, that led me to the word matrimony, which they tell us means marriage. Yeah. How much do you come into, well, they tell us we own nothing. Everything goes to the firstborn, which is male, not female. Well, matrimony, because of what? Patrimony, just made me think. Our inheritance, matrimony, means that it comes from our mother. We inherit what our mothers were supposed to inherit. And because of the religious lie that came to stand in the land, that being a man as your Lord, your God, your life giver, no mother there anywhere, which would then make God a real liar, because the tabernacle below reflects the one above. It also says, you are without excuse not to understand my Godhead. I manifested it in what I created. So we have male and female. We do not have male, male, male. He is not the life giver. She is the life giver. She is the one that forms the clay. You told the potter she had no power over the clay. That's in Isaiah 29 or 28. And also why she says, your covenant of lies is the covenant that's going to be disannulled. Your covenant that made her your harlot bowed at the feet of a religious idol of a man, Baal, standing as your Lord, your God, your head, because you women don't have one. That's why it says, I believe it's in Jeremiah 31 again, where it says, a strange thing is seen in the earth. A woman shall encompass. It's got a man. No, I've come to realize a woman, your head, your true head. It's not his. He was never supposed to be your head. Never. And when you start using his head, that's when you became his harlot. That's when you turned from your creator and you turned to your husband as if he was your Lord and your God. She says, I'll remove the name of Baal off of your tongue. That's what she says. And it's her saying it. It's not a he, God, saying husband, your husband, your husband, your husband, me, God, who made you. If you're going by science, a man can't make a woman. Let's go by even the science of genetics and how much genetic material man is holding, and he made her, did he? Oh, wow, what a lie. Use your brain. Use your reasoning. Okay, so we get the inheritance here. Now we get her here that was crying out in the desert with no water, and that she's to straighten the path. And I had pulled up Ezekiel 27, and I didn't actually go into it. I got distracted again. So Ezekiel 27, it says, "In the cask of wine from Ezel for your wares, wrought iron, cassia, and sweet cane were exchanged for your merchandise." So when you go in here, and you pull up verse 19 on your interlinear in Ezekiel 27:19, and you pull up that word wrought is 6219, which happens to be the number that they attached to my channel. We were assigned numbers. You could take your own, I guess, number. I didn't. I let them assign mine. They assigned 6219. So I went in and looked it up. I just was that interested. And this is what it means for wrought. Iron, okay, for wrought, 6219. Perhaps smooth. Now, in the New Testament, I believe, the word smooth means to make it straight. I just can't find the Greek word that I hit on that said that. But to make smooth, it means to straighten the highway out. And we know the highways became blocked, roughed, crooked. And so God was forced to shut off our gateways because they were taking us to deadly places, I believe. And so we got shut off. But wrought in this verse, when you look it up, 6219, it means skillfully wrought. It also means to walk skillfully, right? So why should that be important? Because we got wrought iron, all right, in this verse. And we're told that the toes of that idol is made of clay and iron, and that they will not hold together. So that the idea is that the iron is going to come out of the lie, all right? And it says it'll smash it all to pieces, all of it. But what's interesting is you get the rock cut out without hands, which is representative of these daughters reborn out of the dust of the earth, where they went into, and they are reformed from as the north kingdom. We're going to look at that. That's the next part we're going to look at. The north. What's in the north? All right. Which is these daughters reborn out of the dust of the earth, which is the branch out of Isaiah 14, the branch out of the root, the viper that'll come forth out of the roots of sin, right? Sennacherib, Solomon, out of these wicked men, there's going to come a root. Now, you could say, well, that's not the root that Jesus come from. We're not talking about Jesus. Jesus is an idol. We're talking about the real root of the daughter that's going to come out and is representative also of this stone that's going to smash the idol. All right? And it comes out, the iron comes out, and ironically, when you look up rocks, you'll find iron in rocks. Iron is in rocks. And so it smashes that. And so we get that allegory also in Zechariah 4, where God says, I'll blow you the chaff away in the wind, and I'll bring forth my capstone. So chaff, when you look up chaff in the Old Testament, that means it's an allegory to the wicked, right, in the kingdom. So the wicked in the kingdom is, after the smash, gets blown away by the Spirit, the true Spirit, and that Spirit, identified as the rock, is reborn out of the dust of the earth as the new capstone, identified as feminine, because she was the original foundation, cornerstone. That cornerstone, when you look at a pyramid, the cornerstone leads up to the top, right? And is also your capstone. And so you get all of your allegory running through that understanding. So she has to walk skillfully. She has to be making straight the highway for our God that will repossess us as her personal inheritance, meaning she's going to take back this portion of heaven, which she promised those old boys of old she was going to do. So we get all of that. Now, where else was I going to go? We're going to go to the north now, which was found, I got this wrote down. Okay, so we'll go to Jeremiah 31 and we'll read, because this is going to give us an understanding. So this is about learning, all right? This is about understanding the truth. And while we may not have everything in place, it's something that you will come to learn the more you study. So where is it? I'm looking for again. Where is it? I've got it pulled up somewhere here. I say I do. Come on. Where are you? Oh my. There it is. Okay. So Jeremiah 30 verse 20. No, that's not it. Okay. Okay, so I know that that's going to take me to a bunch of the references that I need. Okay, so we'll go to Jeremiah 31. Is not Ephraim my dear daughter? It's not a son. The child in whom I delight, pleasant. A pleasant child, she was called, which is also another name for the land of Israel, meaning the daughters of Israel. All right? Though I often speak against her, I still remember her. Therefore my heart yearns for her. I have great compassion for her, declares the Lord. She calls her the firstborn of her womb. And she says, though they've forgotten about you, I will never forget about you. All right? But she also tells these daughters in the earth, when they're reborn, to stand up for their cause, for the cause of God. That's what it says. Take up your own cause in the land. All right? And I've wrote that under some of my videos. I believe I've spoke on it in some of my videos. Okay. So we'll move to... Okay. So Jeremiah 31, verse 8. We're going to hit the north here. And this is what God says, when she takes us back as her scepter to rule through, because she says in Ezekiel 21, what if the sword or the rod contends the scepter, right? So it's talking about our mother who says, I'm not ruling through a harlot spirit, all right? I'm not doing that. I'll come off of you. My spirit will come off of you, all right? And I'll not claim you for my inheritance. But when they come back to the truth, reborn out of the dust of the earth, they take down the false idol of a man, Baal, as your Lord and your God, your bridegroom. Nope. Matrimony don't mean marriage. It means that we inherit our mother's, what belonged to our mother and her rightful place before she was ever denied, which makes the foundation that was placed, the harlot spirit that's going to be wiped out of the land. Now, I had a lot more planned to speak on, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do that tonight. I might in another video, but I probably won't, but I might. You never know. But here she says, behold, Jeremiah 31 verse 8, behold, I will bring them from the land of the north. North meant Israel. And it was a direct reference to the feminine aspect. Your queen, your daughter, comes from Israel. We know the nation of Israel became divided into two. Judah the south, Israel the north. Israel was where the firstborn came from, and they denied her as the key of David and put in play the key of Solomon, which directly links us to the number 666 in the Old Testament, Solomon. If you're wise, you'll understand this. You'll connect it to the Spirit and how the Spirit truly does rule. And it isn't with a woman bowed at a man's feet. All right? That's not how it works. We were to view each other in equality, submit out of love to one another, not because we're told we have to and he's our head. That's sickness in the land. That's what that is. And that was never her covenant. Matrimony means her rightful inheritance from her mother. That's what it meant. Not from her daddy, who did not give her life. Because if you're going by the science, he couldn't. Plain and simple. So, behold, I will bring them from the land of the north, meaning Israel. They're also out in the lands of the Gentiles. This is where we get it. And gather them from the farthest parts of the earth, including the blind and the lame, the expectant mothers, the women in labor. They will return as a great assembly, as a great congregation. That's right. The congregation that met in the north. The house in the forest of Lebanon, which was where the congregation of God met. It was these women, as God's scepter on earth, the ruler. And but King Solomon and other men like him said, I will ascend to God's throne and play God in the midst of the seas, in the midst of the waters, which he did. And so her land becomes known as a desert land, a dry desert land. There's no water to water you. It's all for him because he's God, you see. And you have to listen to him. You have to submit to him. And that's just love to him. That's just absolute love to him from God. While you get beat over the head and told that you have no rights, you have no inheritance. And hey, girls, in the Middle East, you're not even entitled to an education because their God said so. Yeah. Does that really reason in your heart that sounds like the God we know and love? No. That might sound like the God he wants. Yeah. And it says they will return as a great assembly. So we see this great congregation in the desert in Psalm 68. And we see them publishing the word. We see their head in their midst, who was burned to ashes. She's laying as an ash heap. That's right, to be reborn out of the dust of the earth. But these women are surrounding their head there, which is the Lord 136. And it says, she will also rise back up, and she is like a dove, whose wings will be covered in silver and gold. Yeah, a dove, she. And she says, when he turned on her and he began to accuse her falsely of things that she knew not of, she says, oh, that I were a dove and that I could fly away into the desert, into the wilderness. And she ends up doing that. And so we get the dove there. And here we get this north congregation, the great assembly, identified as women. We also get them in 4 other places, I believe, but I won't be able to name them all. Zephaniah is definitely one of the passages, Zephaniah 3. And Micah, one of those chapters, you are also going to get these daughters coming back to the pastures that was always intended for them. It was their inheritance, and by extension, her inheritance. She says, don't worry, we're going to take it all back, girls. I got to fall back. I got to let him have his way, but that's okay. We're going to test them, and we're going to see who's ours and whose isn't. This is how it's going to go down. And she says that in the Old Testament as well. It says, they will come with weeping, and by their supplication I will lead them. I will make them walk beside streams of waters. Where did we get waters for strong rulers, for the scepters that ruled? We got her in Ezekiel 19. But they came against her again and pierced upon her, so that her voice was no longer heard in the mountains of Israel. Right? And that's the congregation that met in the north, identified as the house in the forest of Lebanon, where the government of God met. Also allegorical to her palace, to her body. Alright? And she's the head. So, supplication, I will lead them. I will make them walk beside streams of water on a level path. There's that wrought arm walking straight. That arm that straightens the path. I will make them walk beside streams of waters on a level path where they will not stumble. For I am Israel's father. No. Israel's mother, we get her identified in Isaiah 42. We also get the one chosen to restore them in Isaiah 41. She comes from the north, we're told. On a level path where they will not stumble. For I am Israel's mother, and Ephraim is my firstborn daughter, it should say. Hear, O nations, the word of the Lord, and proclaim it in distant coastland. The one who scattered Israel will gather them and keep them as a shepherd keeps her flock. And she does. It's our mother that scattered us. And she scattered us when we turned from the Creator in the days of our youth and turned to the idol Baal, our husband, as if he was our head and our Lord. Matrimony does not mean marriage, sleeping in his bed, under his laws, in his house, in his tabernacle, under a religious lie, the shadow of the idol that came out of Egypt as your bullock, your bull god Apis. We also see Jeroboam furthering the understanding here, the building of this idol up, that they would bow to this idol of a calf. And he placed one in Dan, he placed the other one in Ephraim, so that they wouldn't have to go up to Judah's altar and worship there. He says, you can also do it here. So we'll do the same thing here. They did the same thing there. They only celebrated it a month after that. I think there was a target on that date, 8/15, since modern day would have you understand it's actually of 15. Yeah. Which is a sort of a, what is it? It's a Valentine's Day in Israel now. So there's all kinds of allegories being made here. They're making this a target over and over again. Her days, her law, her covenant, her body. Everything's about destroying her out of the land and building him up. It says Adam built himself up with thick clay. That means the law system empowered him on earth. And over time, that comes to a weakening in our physical form. That's right. But actually, at the end, it leads to our strengthening in the spirit, because we begin to understand that this was not the way of God. All we got to do is take a big look around. These women who saying, oh, I believe in submitting to my husband and all this crap. Meanwhile, you've got women in the Middle East suffering from headship doctrine, and you're always learning but never able to come to the knowledge of the greater truth of what took place in the Old Testament that we have actually worked out. So again, we'll go back to the north here. Behold, I will bring them from the land of the north. So that means these daughters of Israel who will come from the 4 corners of the world. We see them in Zephaniah 3:18. I will give them fame and glory in every land where they were put to shame. Micah chapter 4. Let her eyes look upon Zion. Let her be defiled. Yes, they wanted her at their feet. They tore down her temple. They stole the riches of her temple, which is also allegorical to these daughters. Right. Inside the temple, you'll get that allegory in Isaiah 22. They're also known as the red jars. Red, a symbol of their suffering, now holding the word of God, water, in their jars. That's right. And so then we're going to go here. Mother says this, I will lead the blind by a way that they did not know. I will guide them on unfamiliar paths, a straight path that they've never been introduced to. I will turn darkness into light before them and rough places into level ground, straight ground. These things will I do for them, and I will not forsake them. So when we go again to, is it here? Jeremiah 50, we get another mention of the north here. And this is in response to Babylon and her children, her seed, his seed, which is really his seed, not hers. Because she says, his vineyard I've kept, but my own I haven't. So we're shown her given, we're being shown her kingdom gave back to her in allegory in Hosea 2. She says, I will call her out of the desert, out of the wilderness, meaning she's going to fill our jars once again, right? Claim us as her inheritance, as her scepter that she will rule through. That's not a harlot spirit. She's going to return to us what rightfully belongs to us. And I lost my thought. And then, as the rod, the scepter that rules, reborn out of the dust of the earth, after the smashing of the toes on that false image as your Lord and God, and this is the nation here that we're told is going to do it. It's the north. It's Israel. Right? Awoke out of the dust of the earth. She will awaken as a warrior that's been drunk on wine. Wine is allegorical to your admixture of doctrine that sits on the table that we drink from. I used to, don't anymore. And it's allegorical to the Red Sea, that the presence of God, not Moses, it was the presence of God to his right hand that parted it with her great power, which is her scepter, the right hand, her own right hand, right? And she parted it. The presence did. That presence is seen with the Shulamite, identified as a flock of she-goats. Her covenant is restored. We find it in Genesis 15:9. She's allegorical to the heifer that gets burned to ashes and then is reborn of the dust of the earth as that dove, the Lord, 136, which is also allegorical to a she-goat because we began to rely on animal allegory after the pollution that come out of Egypt, the bull god, then becomes Baal. And so over time, they cleverly build each succession, giving power to the original beast system is what they did. And so, what was I saying? Yeah. And so, now we get a nation reborn out of the dust of the earth, known as the branch, from out of that root, that'll come upon them, also identified as the stone, like we said, that'll eventually grow into a great mountain after the leveling, the straightening, right, of the road, of the correct pathway. And she says, now I cry as a travailing woman. So she's bringing forth her children. They're hers, not the harlot. Here we get the north coming against the harlot. For a nation has come up against her, Babylon, the harlot spirit that bows to the idol, from the north. These are the original daughters of Israel promised to be restored to their rightful place as the scepter that rules the kingdom, which is the original spirit of the original covenant denied before the foundation of the world. Also, your water. It will make her land an object of horror, and there will be no inhabitants in it. Whether people or animals, they have wandered off, they have gone. So we get the north here, and again, it's Israel. It's allegorical to these daughters that rise up out of the land, telling you the truth about what that idol is, where it came from, and bringing it down, their religious lie. Isaiah 41:25, I have raised up one from the north. They'll want to tell you this is King Cyrus, Am I saying that right? Cyrus. It's not. Cyrus's name meant the anointed one. All right? And it's not his anointed one we're talking about. We're talking about her branch. We find her taking a top branch, which is feminine. She's a multicolored eagle described in Ezekiel 17. And it says another eagle coming behind her, the deceptive liar, and took a different one. Yeah. Overthrew mother's scepter is your idea there. But she says, I have raised up one from the north, one of my daughters from Israel, from the original Israel. And she has come, one from the east. And she has come, one from the east who calls on my name. Not his name, my name. And she will march over rulers as if they were mortar, like a potter who treads the clay. Yeah, that's what they're going to do from the north, these daughters. Yeah. We're told, arise and thresh, O daughter of Israel. Right? I will consecrate their gain unto the Lord of the whole earth. And then we see the crescent moon like horns, actually. And then we get that allegory of Ephraim's horn. Threshing the nations is actually what you're getting there. Ephraim was another name for Israel. And Ephraim was mother's firstborn daughter. And she is promised to thresh the nations. To thresh means to bring about that chaff, which is the wicked in the kingdom that's going to be destroyed. When she brings down the idol of a man. Now, we saw Sennacherib, sin links to the moon, and he took control of the moon, and from the moon, these wicked sons apparently rule the sun, S-U-N. And that is the false light that shone upon the Shulamite, making her black, right? And we get into black of the spirit. In Lamentations, I believe it's 4, we get the allegory to white and black, is what we get. And it is in reference to the spirit and what they did to her, causing her to play man's harlot, bowing to a religious lie, an idol in the land. So we see this north. I have raised one up from the north. It's a daughter out of the nation of Israel. We see her coming out of the draft house. Lord of Dung was another name for Baal. And another name for Baal was your husband, right? Who was the king, the master, the ruler of the kingdom. No, he was not. He was not. And we've proven that over and over again. But that is why we get the female descendant identified in Micah chapter 2, in the words, I forget which verse it is, 2 or 3. Micah chapter 2, verse 2 or 3. Or it might be 4. Maybe it's 4. Micah chapter 4, maybe. Verse 2 or 3. And it's got the ruler that is to come out of you. Come out of Ephraim, Ephratah. Is from everlasting. And everlasting will take you to Israel, the nation of Israel. And Israel was feminine. It was the daughters that ruled that. And so you get this everlasting reference to a female descendant that comes out of the draft house, the dung house of Baal, right? That he is your Lord and Master. No, he is not. And he did not die to wash you in blood. He died to stain you in it, to keep you from the throne of God and from your rightful inheritance. So, okay, so we get that. Then we get all references to anybody paying attention to the ones that they targeted in their inheritance. And we get that in Micah 2. Let me see here. We get it in, okay, Jeremiah 7. Yeah, we get all of the Baal references. I would recommend going in reading Jeremiah 7. I'm not going to read it because the video is getting long, I'm sure of it. Let's see. Okay, so this I should have included. I said Jeremiah 21. I don't think it's Jeremiah 21. I think it was this chapter. We should have focused on with Jeremiah 23. It was one of them anyway. I can't quite remember. If we go ahead to Jeremiah 9, is where I was actually going. And it says, this is the verse, Jeremiah 9:1. It says, "Oh, that my head were waters, and mine eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people." Now, slain will take you to the pierced, which is going to take you to Psalm 22. The bulls of Bashan have surrounded me, all right? And pierced her. They literally dismember her body. And then you get the bones at the gates of Sheol, right? Our bones are scattered at the gates of Sheol. And then the question comes from God, I believe to Ezekiel, can this body live again? And it's talking about us daughters of Israel. Can we live as the daughter of Israel once again? And she says, I'll cause you to walk again on this earth. I will. And so that's us being reborn of the dust of the earth with her spirit upon us as her scepter to rule the kingdom, not his, right? Not his wicked spirit telling us that we're to be at his feet because he's our Lord and God. Oh, that I had in the wilderness a lodging place of wayfaring men, that I might leave my people and go from them, for they be all adulterers, an assembly of treacherous men. And it says, you have dealt treacherously, right, and unfaithfully with the daughter of the original covenant, the righteous daughter. They bend their tongues like bow, a false covenant. Bow means a covenant. Falsehood and truth has grown strong in the land, for they proceed from evil to evil, from one generation to another, from one thing to another. And they do not know me, declares the Lord. So let everyone be on guard of your neighbor, of your brother. And trust ye not in any brother, for every brother will utterly supplant you. Take your place. What was the name for Jacob? Again, Jacob stole Esau's birthright. Correct? That's a feminine, right? Not a masculine. For every brother, your brother supplanted you. And every neighbor will walk with slander. And he did. They began to spread this left and right. And it was all about Baal as your Lord and God. These chapters break that down for you. Jeremiah 23. You forgot my name for Baal. It wasn't God. Another name for the true God, Baal. I seen that ridiculous video. Just the title of it. I said, these people do not study the Bible. Jeremiah 23. You forgot my name for Baal. It was not positive. God is not man, husband, Lord, and God over woman as her head and bride. No, that is not the Spirit of God. That is the spirit of the wicked man wanting to play God. But what does it say here? Therefore thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will melt them and try them, for how shall I do for the daughter of my people? You must try their ways upon the earth. Their tongue is as an arrow shot out, it speaks deceit. One speaketh peaceably to his neighbor, but with his mouth to his sister. But in his heart he layeth in wait. And they do. They lay in wait to take you down, take you out, stab you, pierce you, say some pretty nasty things, while the whole time pretending to be at peace with you, when they're truly not. Shall I not visit them for these things, saith the Lord? Shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this Babylon, the Babylonian nation? But here it speaks of the balm of Gilead. Is there no balm in Gilead? Verse 14. But they have walked after the imagination of their heart. Imagination, man is God. Male is God. Male dictates the law. Male does whatever he wants. That's the imagination of their wicked hearts. And after Balaam, which their fathers taught them. Every father has taught this lie. Every father. Every successive kingdom. From the idol built up of Nebu, demanding you to bow down to his image as if that was Lord and God. And if you didn't, they were going to heat that furnace. I believe it was Darius tossed Daniel into the lion's den. I believe it was King Nebuchadnezzar that had the furnace 7 times hotter if they didn't bow to it. So there you go. If you don't bow to Jesus, you're going to burn. Yeah, that's Hades. That's the Hades take on hell. And they got it from Daniel, the book of Daniel. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts of God, behold, I will feed them, even this people, with wormwood. Wormwood is a wicked law system, and give them poisonous water to drink. So she says, this is what you want, this is what you'll get. You speak these ridiculous, foolish prophecies, but hey, guess what? I'm going to fulfill them for you. Yeah, we're going to give you just what you prophesied. Wormwood, again, is allegorical to a lie, a bitter law. We also see the bitterness in stomachs, like John, when he was told to eat the book, it was bitter in his stomach, and then he was told to go out and preach it. Because he couldn't speak the truth. He wasn't allowed. It wasn't permitted for him. It's only permitted for the seven thunders, for the daughters of the world, daughters reborn out of the dust of the earth. It's for them to speak. We see 3 that were told to be silent about what they had seen. Paul was one of them. Yeah, it was Paul that was one of them. He was took up to the 3rd heaven and told he couldn't speak on what he seen. John was another of them. He saw the truth. He was not allowed to speak on it. He had to keep preaching the lie, and it was bitter in his stomach. Yeah, it was so bitter. I might have that reversed. The truth might have been bitter in his stomach. I don't know. But we get that a lot, that they eat and it becomes very bitter in their stomach. Daniel was the other one who saw it, and he was not allowed to speak on it, that the book would be sealed until the end. So the book is the mystery revealed at the supposed 3.5 year mark of the tribulation, which then you move into the great tribulation for the last 3.5 years, which is her anger being poured out upon Babylon that won't hearken to her truth. But by the 3.5 year, we see the mystery revealed, which is that you denied your Creator in the days of your youth, which was daughter Israel, who was the scepter and ruler of the kingdom, who is the Lord of the kingdom. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider ye and call for the mourning women, that they may come, and send for the cunning women, that they may come, and let them make haste and take up a wailing for us, that our eyes may run down with tears and our eyelids gush out with water. For a voice of wailing is heard out of Zion. How are we spoilt? We are greatly confounded, because we have forsaken the land, because our dwellings have cast us out. So they had to leave the land, because the land, identifying their body, their power, had cast them off. We see why, okay? Yet hear the word of the Lord, O ye women, and let your ear receive the word of her mouth, and teach your daughters wailing, and everyone her neighbor, her brother, lamentations for what they truly did to us, and to themselves by extension. And so we'll go to Micah 2. And this is, again, another one. We see what they did to the inheritors, the female inheritors of the land and their houses. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of the hand. We see King Solomon. We also see King Hezekiah doing the exact same thing that Solomon did. But Solomon was the one that denied the key of David and put in play the harlot spirit foundation, which leads you to 666, the beast system, which was the harlot spirit. We know Solomon took wives from the surrounding nation. He denied the key of David her right to flow like a living water when he walls up the breaches of David his father, it says. He walls up the gateways, and he establishes the harlot spirit. He attacks the house in the forest of Lebanon. We see that attack identified in Isaiah 22, right? The key of David is identified. For anybody who can follow the passages. And so he was one that was devising iniquity and work evil upon their beds. And when the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hands to do so. And they covet fields. They coveted her fields. They took them by violence and houses, and they take them away. So they oppress not a man. It's a woman and her house, even a woman and her heritage, her inheritance. They supplanted her. They said, we're the God. We're the rule. This all belongs to us. You belong to us. She belonged to nobody but God. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise. What's the family? We actually find the family identified as Babylon. I believe that family literally is spoken of as family. It's Jeremiah 50 or 51. I didn't read it. I meant to read it. I'm pretty sure that's where it's spoken of. I may be wrong. But it says the family, this family. And the family she's talking about is the family of Babylon. Therefore the Lord says, I am now planning a disaster against this nation. You cannot free your necks from it, and then you will not walk so proudly, because it will be an evil time. We're in those evil times. In that day one will take up a taunt against you and lament mournfully, saying, we are totally ruined. They measure out the allotted land of my people, and how he removes it from me, he allots our fields to traders. The traders were the harlot spirit that they were taking as wives. We saw the attack of the vipers in the wanderings sent in by Balaam, Balak, Baal. We get what that means. And so they began to follow Balaam's way after Balaam contaminated the woman's seed, which was the daughters inside the nation of Israel, by sending in the harlots from the surrounding Adamic nation, like thorns and thistles. They were also identified as scorpions, poisoning the waters, her waters. But it was the men that were sending the women in to contaminate her. And it was to, and they were talking to the men in their tents. They were telling them things that tickled their ears. It's like honey on their tongue, but it was wormwood. It was poison in them. And then we see God saying, look to this serpent around, which was the glory, the true glory, denied. But if you look to her and to that scepter, to her rule, you'll live. But if you don't want to look to her, fine, you can die. You can die under these harlots' teaching that you're Lord and God. You can die that way. That's fine. So we get that allegory. So therefore, thou shalt have none that shall cast a cord by lot in the congregation of the Lord. You're not going to expand your territory in the heavenlies. Her body was what it was identifying. They tore it down. They weaved a web of lies together, a body that can't hold. And the reason why is because they're saying they're God. It's the harlot spirit ruling in their heart. They want to make you their harlot. They want to make you under them. And they want to take your territory, claiming that it's really his and you've got to listen to his law. So because of that, God says you'll not be able to cast a cord. You're not taking any more property. You're not, because it was never yours to take. You can't cast a cord for more lots, more planets, more space to live, more cities for your children to grow up in, because they're not my children. They're Babylon's. They don't belong to me. And you're not going to... So she says, I place... Where is it? Job. She says in Job 30... She says, your proud waves I will stave, and you'll pass no further. So she put in a stone saying, you're going to pass. You're not passing. Because you have no right to take more land. Because you're not my children. You're not. You're the harlot's children. Which by extension means you adhere to an idol of a man as your Lord and God. You're not taking more property in my heavens under those religious lies and laws. And if the Spirit don't tell you that these words are truth, then you don't know the Spirit. God says, you approach to me with the vain traditions of men, but you don't even know who I am. So prophesy ye not, say they to them that prophesy, the false prophesier who's prophesying all this stuff. They shall not prophesy to them that they shall not take shame. So they were prophesying. They should not preach these things. Shame will not overtake us. Right? O thou that art named the house of, it's got Jacob, no, Israel. Is the Spirit of the Lord straitened, impatient? Are these her doings? Do not my words do good to her that walketh uprightly? You've got yourself established as Lord and God. You took everything from her. You're saying that I don't bless her like I bless you. That's what you're saying. So that's what it's saying. Even of late, my people, my sons, supposedly, You have risen up as an enemy, and you pull off the robe, which was identified as these daughters. Robe is feminine here, meaning her glory, with the garment from them that pass by securely, as if you are men at war with my daughters, who I put in the house of the forest of Lebanon as the government as God, of God, as my scepter to rule the earth, and you rose up against them as an enemy. The women of my people have you cast out from their pleasant houses, and from their children have ye taken away my glory forever. Yet, out of the dust of the earth shall a familiar spirit speak to me, she says. All right? So we get this here in Micah 2. We get the daughters being blessed in Micah 4. But we see this over and over. They're tearing down the daughters. We saw it in Jeremiah. We see it here. We see it in Lamentations 4. We see it in Isaiah 22. They're coming actually against, they won't use the female pronoun because these male gods took control of the word. These male prophets playing God, saying they were hearing from Baal. They were prophesying through Baal. We're told that in Jeremiah 23. And God says, you forgot my name for Baal. They began to prophesy through themselves, husband. And we see the archers shooting at the branches as they pass over the wall. They were actually passing through it. And that was in Joseph's blessing. Joseph is always a reference to the feminine blessing, not no male. The birthright belonged to her. She also had the blessing removed from her, but the blessing belonged to her as well. Being the firstborn, she should have received the blessing, which means the rule of the kingdom, and the birthright, the right to govern as the spirit over the body. And that was removed from her by these men of Baal, archers, and the word is Baal, shooting at the branch, the daughters. That's the word for daughters in word for branch in Genesis 49, 23, 24. Your archers there is Baal. We also see the king in the book of Esther. Oh, Esther was such a godly woman. She bowed, just like Jezebel bowed to Ahab, promising him she was going to make him great in the land, and she did. That's the Jezebel spirit, building up the idol of Jesus, just like those big Hollywood stars saying, oh, I believe in headship doctrine. Meanwhile, their sisters being murdered for headship doctrine. And that's what it's over. Oh, you can take it from varying degrees. You can sound sanctimoniously righteous, but it's going to be the horns in the west that's going to have to lead the charge of the threshing of the nations, meaning taking down that false idol and then determining the wicked from the righteous. It is a judgment that she has promised. She is going to judge the nations. That was promised to her long ago. Yeah. And it's all there. Yeah, it's all there. And all you got to do is take a good look around you. What's going on? If you're a godly man, you're going to see it in your spirit. If you're a godly woman, you're going to see it in your spirit. You're going to see it with your eyes. That's how you're going to bridge it. Bridge the world from the physical plane to the spiritual plane. We gave the word Eido in Greek, E-I-D-O, I believe is how it's spelled. Can't remember the number. But it tells you that. It says, yeah, I see what you mean, right? Your heart, the spirit inside of you is going to tell you whether that rings true or not, whether what they're telling us is the truth, whether that's going to ring true, or whether it sounds like an outright blasphemy against the Holy One. And we're told that they did blaspheme her holy name in the Old Testament. We've studied it, we've looked at it. I think for the most part we hit on a lot of it. Might have been slightly out of order. Hopefully it's in there somewhere. I know I would say one thing and stop and then move on to another. Hopefully we picked it up at some point. I won't know till I watch the video. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope you're blessed with an abundance of the truth from the Spirit. I hope that you open your eyes, open your heart to the truth. Don't be a child of Babylon. Obviously, from anybody who can study and show yourself proven as one that can rightfully divide the word. That was another thing I did want to, I think I still have them pulled up here. Let me see if I do have them still pulled up here somewhere. It was 2 words. Yeah, to cut straight. Strong's Greek. I cut straight. This is Strong's Greek 3718. And this is what it means to study. It means to cut the word straight. Make a highway for your God. For the spirit that's going to take back her scepter. Alright? And that means to straighten the word. 3718, to divide it. To cut straight. I handle correctly. I teach right. That's your Koheleth. Let me set the Proverbs in order. That means to straighten the word. It means to straighten the highway. To cut it properly, straight. Properly cut straight on a straight line. Rightly divide. Correctly apportion. Alright? To make a straight cut. Figuratively. To dissect, expound upon. Correctly. The divine message. To rightly divide it. Alright? And most today can't be bothered to study. They're too busy with blind faith. Oh, you're not going to turn me. Oh no, you're cast in shadow at the feet of your religious lie and idol. You're also stained in blood, and God is not going to receive you into her kingdom. I can tell you that. We also have a different word here for straight. 2116, it's Greek. Make straight. In the wilderness, make straight the highway for your God. It's funny how Strong's Greek takes us back to this meaning, right? Of the wrought iron as well, to make straight. To walk straight, walk uprightly. That was the meaning of it. John 1:23, in the wilderness, make straight the way. And that's what this Greek word takes you to, actually. Back to Old Testament references. 2116, to make straight of the direction, not the surface of a road, but I guide, I steer, I make straight, immediately, without deviation or unnecessary delay. We make straight, we're piloting it. To lead, guide straight, to keep straight, to direct. That's she. Now will I go forth as a travailing woman. She says, long time have I been made to be silent. Yep, they wrote laws telling me to shut up, woman, and bow to man, the idol. Yep, and you did that. But she says, long time have I held my peace, have I been silent. And now will I go forth as a travailing woman. I'm going to birth my children through the truth. I will destroy and I will devour at once. I will make straight. Yeah, I will lead you in pathways you have not known. So to straighten, level, technically to steer. Governor, there you go. That's your ruler of the kingdom, making straight the highway for her God. That's her mother, the return of her mother, the creator that you denied in the days of your youth, exalting your Baal, your husband, who you turned to and said he was your Lord and God, after he ripped apart and dismembered the true ruler of the kingdom, the true spirit of the kingdom, which was denied as the foundation stone. Before the foundation of the world, she was pierced upon, she was ripped apart, she was dismembered, is your idea of the whole thing going down in Psalm 22. For anybody who can reason and piece it together and understand a little bit of the feminine that they put in there. And with that little bit of feminine, you're able to identify the other feminine aspects of the Bible. So there we have it. Thank you once again for watching my videos, for liking them. I know I've been on delay for a while. I needed it, and I may take some more time, really longer stints between videos. It's just so much harder to get a video up. But it is important to continue our learning. The few out there that are on this journey with me, I have to believe you're daughters of the original covenant, the scepter that she has called out, and by extension, the men who are listening will be the sons of Israel, and that means the sons of God, because she was called God upon this earth. And it says, take up your cause, O God, once again. Do you not know they reproach you daily, that the wicked man reproaches you daily? The reproach is you want to play his harlot. That's the reproach that they're spilling it in heaven against you. And it's time you stood up for your children. So anyway, thanks once again for watching the video. I appreciate it. I appreciate the shares, the likes. And I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. And I hope you all have a really nice evening. And thanks again.